Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Lots to share with you tonight. Russia rattling its nuclear sabers off the coast of Florida. Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0. The dumbest tax plan, as it's being described by some, ever. We'll go to the House of Commons question period for a heated exchange between Canada's Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland and the leader of the official opposition, Pierre Poilievre, Conservative. It's all about that capital gains tax and the carbon tax and all the other taxes, honestly. So we'll dig into all of that. Some politics to share with you. We have, I think we've got also the Sky News political commentator who called Justin Trudeau a neo-Marxist Ken doll. We'll show you that clip. And what else do I have for you tonight? Torrential rain resulting in flooding down in Fort Lauderdale. And we're going to also take a look tonight at the foreign interference issue in Canada. I have two reports, unredacted, in full. We'll go over them in a quick sort of manner, and then eventually what we'll do is we'll get those reports up on our website so you can read them in full, but I'll show you some of the highlights from those foreign interference reports here tonight on the Maverick News Channel. So don't go away. We have a lot to share with you.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching.
The world is watching. On TV. The entire world is watching. On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, boy, I'll tell you, we have never been so close to an actual full-blown nuclear war. Russia sending ships to Cuba, engaging in military exercises within, I'm hearing, as close as 66 miles off the coast of Florida. If that isn't enough to scare you, well, then you have nerves of steel. So this is video released by the Russian Ministry of Defense. This is making the rounds on social media. What is it exactly? Ask the Russians. I can't tell you exactly, but there's a Russian sub. Some of this happening within a stone's throw of Florida, where we are also seeing where we're seeing NORAD fighter jets. So what is this? It's a game of nuclear chicken is what it is. Now, who you listen to will dictate what you're hearing, and I'm hearing a wide range of opinions on this, with some prepping channels, preppers who do live streams, pushing the panic button, essentially. On the other side, I'm seeing some mainstream media saying that what's happening here is generally consistent with routine military posturing by Moscow. Of course, they're saying that there is, some exception to that rule, as we've heard from National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who told reporters aboard Air Force One today, quote, "There are elements of this one that are different, that are distinct," he said. No kidding. They have a submarine associated with this port visit that they have not had before. So the first deployment of a nuclear submarine to Cuba since the end of the Cold War, and it is serving as a strong message to the Biden administration of Moscow's displeasure, I would say, with U.S. support for Ukraine. It's also increasing its ability to stock U.S. coastlines and do so with stealth submersibles. So we have a growing concern for the U.S. military. Multiple officials familiar with the matter have come out with public statements on this. And just last month, the U.S. Northern Command warned Congress that Moscow could deploy very soon 12 similarly advanced nuclear submarines split evenly between the Pacific and Atlantic to create a persistent conventional threat to the United States. So this is just a standoff. This is a show of force. This is Putin flexing his muscles and showing the United States that they don't need to deploy nuclear weapons in Cuba. All they have to do is put a sub off the coast of the United States. And the result is the same, or maybe even more serious. I would say more serious. Put multiple subs off the coast. You add in hypersonic missiles, you add in nukes, you have yourself a very destabilized situation. So, a lot of very worried people out there. I'm certainly worried about it. I'm not saying we should be panicking or anything of the sort, but this is not good. This is not, I mean, we need to put this in perspective. This is not the Russians at this point getting ready to launch nukes. This is posturing. This is sending a message. It's saying, hey, we're right here. How far do you want to go? You want to dance? That's what it is. So, in that regard, it is absolutely escalation. But let's just keep our heads clear, stay cool, and not get panicked by footage like this coming from the Russian side. But it is very serious. I'm not sure mainstream media here in North America is giving this its due. When I think back to everything I knew about the Cuban Missile Crisis, that was elevated to an extreme level. This, hardly getting any media attention at all. More attention on the independent side, not that much on the mainstream media side that I'm seeing. It's there, it is being reported on, but it's not top of mind, not front and center, not the lead story, but maybe it should be, because the risk, the threat from nuclear war is so great. All that while the issue of foreign interference still rears its head in Canada. Also a very serious matter. We had that whole inquiry showing that it is very serious, more serious than anybody realized. And now NSCOP Chair David McGuinty says foreign interference goes way beyond just what's going on in the House of Commons with the parliamentarians. And we know that there have been some parliamentarians, members of Parliament, who have been identified in a report as having been cooperating or working with, either unwittingly or semi-wittingly, with these foreign governments to assist with their efforts at, I guess, infiltrating the Canadian system. Anyway, McGuinty says there is interference in non-governmental organizations and corporate institutions too. But we're not getting many other details. We still don't have the names of those parliamentarians who are alleged to be involved in any of this, either wittingly or unwittingly. And we don't have the names of any of these institutions outside of Parliament that have been affected as described here in this clip either.
Part of the reason for your committee is to provide some clarity as to what's happening in security intelligence spaces, yes, so that not everything happens behind closed doors.
Yes.
We now know Elizabeth May has read the report. She interprets it quite differently than I think most of us have interpreted it, and I think maybe than you intended it to be interpreted. Can you help us know? I know you haven't seen her comments yet, sure, but will you, if you read her comments and you feel like she's interpreting that report wrongly, will you offer that clarity?
First of all, when we do our work, we don't intend it to be communicated one way or another. We just do the work. When we come to ground and what we're going to say, it's predicated on hours of deliberations and a lot of confidential and classified material. So we don't design it with a message track. This is not a communications exercise. Huh? This is a national security and intelligence review process. I don't retain outside communications expertise on how to position the message track. That's what politicians do. I get it. This is a different kind of process. This is why this is so unique, and it's the first time since the War Committee, I think, of 1942, when we have politicians coming together to deal with these sensitive issues. because we don't game it out. We do the work. Now, if people have read the review, I don't think they can come to some of the conclusions that were being bandied about over the last 5 or 6 days. Right now, Ms. May has made some comments. I'm told they're helpful. It's good that we're having the debate. It's good that Canadians are paying attention. And I think it's also good, that question is probably the most important. Are we building trust in Canadian society? Do people think we have this? I think we do. I think we can. We're coming to it. We've called out the government where they've been weak. We've been very clear about it. We've given them a pathway forward. We've been very clear about that. Now it's up to the government, and for that matter, other political party leaders to act together.
Which conclusions are you talking about that have been bandied about? Some of the conclusions that have been bandied about, which ones are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about, obviously there's a really big focus on who this, who that, who do you have, what do you have, what do you... This is not something that could be divulged based on classified information. Everything that we can say about parliamentarians, again, you keep coming back to parliamentarians. It is a very narrow strip in this very wide review. This is not intended to be a targeted parliamentary review. This is targeting 2 elections, what happened in those elections, who the malign state actors might be, who we can name, who we cannot name, where it goes, where is foreign interference? Is it in our NGOs? Yes. Is it in our boardrooms? Yes. Is it in our community associations? Yes. Should we wake up? Yes. Should we deal with this together? Yes. Can we? Yes. Have we given 5, 6, 7 steps forward? Is Bill C-70 a good start? Yes. I said it 2 nights ago at the Senate. This is an important, good start to build on. So the committee wants to keep it very positive, and the committee wants to see progress. Again, I think our leaders can come together and do this because our committee has come together to do this.
Okay. Make of that what you will. We do have here tonight the reports, unredacted, in full. Let's take a quick look. There are actually 2 different reports that are out there. So you have, let me see, are these the same ones? So I have this one here, and we have this one. Okay. So let me bring this over. First, I'll show you this public inquiry report into foreign interference in federal electoral processes and democratic institutions. That's the name of this report. So let me bring this up on the screen for you. And there it is. Bingo. Now this is a long one. And this is the website which contains the report itself. There is also a video here that you can go and see, which is a webcast of the Commissioner's statement about the release of this initial report. Now that's actually an older video, so we won't waste our time kind of reviewing that. And now I'll pop over and show you, what's the website address on that? That is, it's a long one. foreigninterferencecommission.ca/reports. You can Google that. Now we'll go over to the actual report itself, and I will endeavor to get this up on our website for you at mavericknews.ca. This is the longer of the 2 reports that are out there. Public inquiry into foreign interference in federal electoral processes and democratic institutions. Scroll down, and here's the message from the Commissioner. We just heard from him. A report firmly supported by evidence. I'm going to scroll down. It's very lengthy. This is 194 pages, I believe. so we won't have time to go through all 194 pages here tonight. I'm just going to give you a few highlights, and then I will make this available later on the Maverick News website. So here are the highlights. Let me just increase the size here. In the following pages, he says, I present an overview of the events and issues the Commission has addressed to date and the main conclusions I have drawn from them. To learn more about why I have reached these conclusions, I strongly encourage you to read the full text of the initial report. This report should be read with the following caveats in mind. First, the report presents findings that are not definitive. The Commission's work is ongoing and is likely to shed a different or more comprehensive light on certain events. Accordingly, some of the findings in this report may need to be qualified or modified in the final report. Secondly, pursuant to its terms of reference and rules of practice and procedure, the Commission had access to the documents relevant to its mandate, including classified documents, without redaction for national security confidentiality. The obligation to protect sensitive information has therefore in no way prejudiced the Commission's truth-seeking role. Thirdly, the Commission has examined the evidence of possible foreign interference identified by many Canadian government agencies. While further investigation was done, its terms of reference and resources did not allow the Commission to conduct a separate, comprehensive, and standalone investigation to uncover evidence of interference that these agencies had not already found. These agencies have the skills to gather relevant information and, above all, to analyze it, thus making it possible to produce useful intelligence and information for the Commissioner to consider. Anyway, just some other little details in there, but he says here, the nature of the interests at stake, one of the greatest challenges faced by the Commission is striking a balance between the transparency of its work and the protection of Canada's national security interests. This is what he's referring to when he's saying they can't release a lot of this information, including some of those names, because then they would be revealing sources and methods. A pragmatic approach to this challenge, it says here, several administrative and legislative standards govern the way in which sensitive information is handled and the conditions under which it may be disclosed, again, tying back into what I just said. What is foreign interference? It says here it is not new, but it is evolving. It reflects changes in geopolitics. Certain countries have gained power and have begun to use that power to influence others. It also reflects changes in technology, the evolution of the digital environment, including alternative social media platforms and artificial intelligence. Offers foreign countries new ways of targeting individuals and organizations, including through surveillance and harassment. This is what I've been saying on this program. I've been reading intelligence studies out of the United States as well, and intelligence reports, open source stuff, but nevertheless, very useful, helpful information informing my views on this. And I've been telling everyone we are engaged in fifth generation warfare. The new front line is the information war. And that is what we are engaged in here every night. That's what you're being subjected to. You are under attack. The country is under attack. This whole thing that is going on is a giant psyop. It's propaganda, it's information warfare, and they are playing with your minds. It is not just your own government, it's all these foreign governments twisting stuff around. And it's also our government because, as we've just detailed here, we have some people within our own institutions who are either wittingly or unwittingly helping the process of foreign interference along, either because they're corrupt or because they're being duped. How Canada responds to foreign interference. Canada is a liberal democracy. As such, its capability to respond to foreign interference is limited by its obligation to respect freedom of thought, opinion, and expression, the right to privacy, the right to vote, and the impartiality of the civil service. This is also what I've been saying for months. Canada, because it is a free country, is vulnerable. One of the greatest assets, one of the things that makes this country great is free speech. that we are a free and open society, but that leaves us extremely vulnerable to foreign information warfare attacks. Because people not acting in good faith can engage in what they would even call journalism, covertly, undercover, or right in plain sight, but not really engage in journalism. You see? And so they can spread propaganda. And they can even say things that in other countries that are authoritarian would get them thrown in jail. But over here, they can openly say kind of anything that they want under the protection of our free speech rights and our open society. So this is what we're up against. And we are far more vulnerable here than they are in countries where they have far more censorship. This is also why the government is responding with new legislation aimed at censoring things. It's because they're seeing this threat. They don't know how to deal with it. And so it is the government that the government closes things off. They tighten things up. They engage in censorship because they're not sure what to do. Also, you could argue that maybe some of the bad actors who are in government, who have not yet been named, wanted this to happen. So they know that this infiltration, this information warfare, will force the government's hand and make them crack down. We've even seen it during our experiment with free speech right here on the Maverick News Channel and what has been happening in our chat and with our call-in show. What's happened? We get attacked. We started with a completely open system, a completely open chat, no censorship, people pretty much allowed to do whatever they want in there, engaging in almost like a form of verbal and textual anarchy, right? Zero policing, but people couldn't police themselves. Or because you got some bad actors in there who engaged in malicious speech and sabotage and verbal vandalism and textual vandalism, and they've undermined the integrity of the chats. They were undermining the integrity of the call-in show. It's very much the same thing here with our free speech. You get bad actors who challenge the system by causing chaos, and the government responds because it becomes an existential threat to the government and to the entire system and to the freedoms of others. So it's this, what we're seeing right now too, is something of, I don't know if it's an experiment, but we're certainly into new territory because of the new technologies that are out there, the internet, artificial intelligence, new techniques used to manipulate people psychologically, videos that are created entirely or partially with our AI. It's a very troubling thing because the proliferation of the technology, the malicious actions of foreign entities, is putting our free speech at risk. In order to stop the malicious attacks, we end up losing our rights, our freedoms, as governments respond in order to protect the country. And in the course of doing so, they actually become the authoritarian kind of government that we're all opposed to. It's an insidious thing. It's a terrible thing. And I'm not sure where the answer to any of this really goes. I think what we've seen so far is completely inadequate. And I'm not sure that the people running these, I don't think the people running the show in Ottawa are adequately equipped to deal with this, and they are way behind the curve. You see here that, this report is dealing with the situations going back to, 2016, 2020, 2017, 2021, the past two elections. They're just getting to this stuff now. When I see what's going on today, we are deep in deep trouble. It says here the case of India and Russia. Intelligence holdings indicate that the government of India may have attempted to clandestinely provide financial support to preferred candidates during the 2021 election without the candidates' knowledge. The commissioner here says, I have not identified any shortcomings with respect to information flow or the government's response to this issue. As for Russia, the panel did not receive any evidence of a concerted Russian disinformation campaign during the 2021 election. Intelligence indicates that Russia is likely not currently a significant foreign interference threat to Canadian federal elections. I don't know if that would be accurate or not. From what I'm seeing, I think just within the last year, I would disagree with that. I think Russia is far more sophisticated than anyone is giving them credit for. They're way better at it than anyone gives them credit for. I think they are involved in things that the federal government has simply not identified. And I think that Russia, India, China in particular, and Iran, India, and China, I think they're all working together. I think they are coordinated on a lot of this stuff. At least where the information attacks are focused on North America, the United States and Canada. That's what I would say. But hey, what do I know? I'm just little old me sitting over here reading their report, which I think is about easily 4 years behind the times. Anyway, this whole thing will be posted. You know, they're talking about cyber threats. And CSIS announcing a change in the type of threat the following year in 2018. CSIS publicly reports on foreign interference. See, they're way back 2018. It's 2024 now, and the technology is expanding and becoming more and more sophisticated. It's accelerating at an exponential rate, especially because of AI. These guys are so far behind. They have no idea what's going on. I don't think. Not really. They're just beginning to clue in. In 2019, NSICOP devoted a chapter of its annual report to the government's response to foreign interference, which excludes activities directed at the 2019 federal election and cyber threats. And we've seen a ton of those just within the last year, not just against government, but against hospitals. Big cyber attack right here, even in this part of Canada, all through southern Ontario. Shut hospitals down. How serious is that? That's extremely serious. And I think that's just a warm-up. That is, in my view, that's them testing things, figuring out where we're vulnerable so that if we get into a hot war, they can just shut stuff right down. NSICOP concludes that Canada is the target of significant and sustained foreign interference activities by states, including China and Russia. Activities include using deceptive means to cultivate relationships for political influence, seeking to sway media reports and elections, as well as coercing or inducing diaspora communities to advance foreign interests in Canada. According to NSICOP, foreign interference has received minimal media and academic coverage in Canada and is not yet part of the wider discourse. The government must engage the public and democratic institutions at each level of government to raise awareness about interference. Yes, better get on it. In its 2020 annual report, NSICOP mentions that cyber threat actors have refined their ability to conduct online disinformation campaigns, to amplify social differences, create conflict, and undermine confidence in governmental institutions. It says the number of states involved has grown since January 2019, and state-sponsored online activity is likely to continue to target Canadian political discourse, especially around elections. However, NSICOP concludes that Canada's 2019 federal election did not appear to have been a significant target of online influence and misinformation. I don't know about that. So the government has taken some steps. We've seen some new legislation written. This does provide a timeline, but as the commissioner just said, he's not here to tell you a story. They're just compiling information. So you have to kind of go through and wade through all the information, sift through it, find the little nuggets of extremely relevant information. They're going through the mandate. Let's go all the way down here to the bottom. And then we saw Jagmeet Singh in the House of Commons this week say that he wants the current investigation expanded into foreign interference to include an investigation into the leadership process for the Conservative Party. It's funny that he would do that, but that's politics. Deflect, deflect, deflect. I see today as well that the death of a Canadian in India has been confirmed. It is now being reported by mainstream media, and that is significant because we've seen that investigation into what appears to be an assassination of Indian separatists, classified by the Indian government as terrorists on Canadian soil. And my guess is, from what I'm seeing, even though no names and no details have been released, the fact that this information is coming out, I bet you within the next day or two, we will see information surface to tell us that this death in India is somehow tied into that, either directly or indirectly. So this is that report, the public inquiry report. But there is another report that is out there as well. This is the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, their special report on foreign interference in Canada's democratic processes and institutions. Let me pull this one up. We'll get both of these up on our website at mavericknews.ca. They are not up there yet because I have to do all of this on my own, and I was too busy getting the program lined up for tonight. But that's okay. I will get these on the site for you. So here it is. Here's the other report. Now this one is much shorter. This one is 92 pages, about 100 pages shorter. And this one also. Well, this one is, this one's a little bit more focused. And here it gives us an indication of what foreign interference is, at least how they define it. And what is it? It says you hear what foreign interference is not. On the outside edge, overt engagement with entities in Canada. Aggressive lobbying, lawful advocacy or dissent, use of foreign state media outlets in Canada to spread propaganda. They don't view that as foreign interference. Canadian entities openly advocating support for a foreign state. So that outside edge there, I would say that illustrates one of the main reasons Canada and the United States, as sort of free countries, are so vulnerable, because we just allow that kind of stuff to happen here. It's not illegal. The government doesn't do anything to stop it. It falls into the sphere of free speech. And then in this gray area, the gray zone plus deception. So this is maybe kind of it is, but it's not something maybe that crosses the line into illegal activity, things like paying Canadian media outlets to produce foreign propaganda without attribution. So taking money. So if you have like an independent media outlet and they're getting paid by a foreign government to put out propaganda, that's in the gray zone. Is it legal? Isn't it legal? It's kind of iffy. Probably not going to lay charges or do anything about it. It would fall into the area of free speech, providing support, financial or otherwise, to friendly community organizations in Canada without attribution. So again, what we heard from the commissioner right there, is it out there? Yes, it is. This is essentially funneling money, foreign money, into organizations, entities, nonprofits who are out there maybe working against the government or maybe engaged in destabilizing activities because they don't like what the government is doing, and so the foreign governments kind of help that along. As I've described it here on the show many times over the past couple of years, it's like making a snowball. Somebody makes a snowball of disruption, and they start rolling it down the hill, and a foreign government takes note of some organization or person that doesn't like the government, and they've got this snowball rolling down a hill, gathering steam and getting bigger and bigger into a snow boulder, and the foreign government will just get behind that and help it by throwing a little more snow at it in the form of laundered or dark foreign money even, or by sending over a political operative to get involved with the group and infiltrate them and engage in activities to encourage the disruptive activity. That's kind of the way it works. And then it says here, engaging with third-party groups, persons in Canada to monitor entities of concern. Example, dissidents. Falls into the same kind of activities I just mentioned. Corruptive practices. Example, in exchange of small favors, payments, inducements to further a relationship. Again, tying right into what I just said. Foreign interference is, and this is in the red zone, obfuscation of state involvement in influence efforts, use of third parties to further hostile state interests, deceptive activities meant to manipulate individuals, clandestinely or deceptively using entities, for example, a person, group, company in Canada to perform duties normally assigned to officials of a foreign state, stifling open discussion of contentious issues via threats and or coercion, obviously illegal, funding and or supporting electoral candidates or political parties via proxies, seeking to control or unduly influence diaspora communities and groups, obviously that's not legal, disinformation campaigns both online and offline, yes, and that would be in the red zone if you're clearly crossing over into that with malicious intent. And, I'm not sure where that line gets crossed from the gray zone to the red zone. And isn't it interesting that they refer to this as the gray zone? If anybody has been paying much attention to that media outlet out there, what is the name of that one? Oh, yes, the gray zone. I wonder why they call it that. Are they acting in good faith? I think a lot of these foreign influenced and even foreign directed online media entities away from the MSM, some of them are telling you openly what they really are. The people not familiar with the phrases, the terminology, don't really clue in. Me included. I mean, sometimes this stuff just washes over me. I don't think much about it. Oh, that's a cool name. But sometimes they're just outright telling you what they're up to. What else do we have here on this report? The threat of foreign interference in Canada's democratic processes and institutions. It describes the primary threat actors and outlines the four main tactics that these states have used since 2018, covertly influencing the opinions and positions of voters, ethnocultural communities, and parliamentarians. We've seen that especially within these diaspora communities from India, leveraging relationships with influential Canadians, exploiting vulnerabilities in political party governance and administration, and deploying a variety of cyber tools to attain specific objectives. Key threat actors. In its 2019 review of the government response to foreign interference, the committee noted that the most significant perpetrators of foreign interference in Canada were the People's Republic of China, the Russian Federation, with the PRC representing the greatest foreign interference threat. The committee also noted that other states, including India, Pakistan, and Iran, engaged in foreign interference activities. And I showed you about 6 or 8 weeks ago Yeah, it'd be about 6 weeks ago, I guess now. A document, a memo that was from the Iranian government talking specifically about engaging in this kind of information warfare right here in Canada. I showed you the memo. They were talking directly about it. It was leaked. Between September 1st, 2018 and November 7th, 2023, foreign interference targeting democratic institutions and processes remained largely consistent with the broader trends the committee identified in its previous review. Most notably, the PRC remained the largest foreign interference threat to Canada, including to its democratic institutions and processes. The PRC's foreign interference efforts continue to be sophisticated, persistent, and multidimensional, targeting all orders of Canadian government and various facets of society, and relying upon a number of methods. This goes on. It just reinforces what was already just said there. And as you read this report further, you'll see that actually India has emerged as perhaps the... I don't know if it's the biggest actor in this right now, most active in this kind of activity, or if it's China based on the information in this report, but it's certainly emerged as a major player. And that's because we are getting so much immigration from India, and because the politics over there is so volatile, and now we have all this additional tension because of the assassination that took place here on Canadian soil, the conflict, the friction between the government of India and Justin Trudeau, because they view Trudeau as someone who is now harboring and protecting, in their view, terrorists, Indian terrorists. And on the other side, Trudeau's under pressure because it appears as though he did not do enough to protect the people who were assassinated over here, in the view of some. The United Front Work Department, Front Work Department, UFWD, a department of the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party, it says in this part of the report, page 27, is the organization primarily responsible for strengthening the PRC's influence and interests abroad. The individual responsible for the United Front Work Department is the fourth highest ranking member of the PRC's 7-person Politburo. United Front Work refers to the PRC government's strategy of influencing through both overt and covert methods, overseas Chinese communities, foreign governments, and other actors to take actions and positions supportive of Beijing's preferred global narrative. While the PRC employs a large network to carry out United Front work, the UFWD is responsible for its conception, implementation, and oversight. It says here that the CCP has spent over $2.6 billion in U.S. funds on United Front work in 2019, more than it spent on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So, if you don't think this is having an impact, think again. China spent $2.6 billion on this kind of information warfare. I'd say, countries that are engaging in this kind of stuff, who are effective at it, and that's these guys, China, India, Russia, Iran, they're getting big bang for their buck. As I've said, if they can undermine trust in institutions, if they can undermine support for military funding, then they can win wars without firing a shot, or they can end wars much more quickly because the funding and the aid doesn't get to the front lines. So they win. Why? Because the funding was cut off on the American and Canadian sides. So the money didn't flow, or just from the NATO side, or, Israel didn't get the funding, so they got wiped off the face of the planet. Or Ukraine didn't get the funding, so the war ended. And a lot of people would cheer for that, I suppose. But in order to achieve that, you should really be asking yourself this question. Are you being influenced by people who have malicious intent? And if you can push that aside and then analyze things without bias, if you can remove yourself from that influence and look at things objectively, can you do that? And if so, what conclusion would you then reach? Without the foreign influence, would you be supportive or not of either of these two current major conflicts that we are involved with in Gaza and in Ukraine? I'm not sure that any of us can honestly answer that, because I don't think any of us are truly aware of how much foreign influence we have been subjected to. And with China alone spending $2.6 billion on its efforts, how much more have we been subjected to? That's a massive, that's an advertising budget that is beyond what even major corporations spend. I remember when I was in high school, and we had what then they called social studies. So I took that, that's one of the programs that I took. It involved politics, culture, a variety of things like that. And we talked about advertising, and it was pointed out by the teacher at the time. He said, do you know who spends the most money on advertising in Canada? And it was the federal government. Let me just find out how much they're spending now. How much money does the Canadian government spend on advertising each year? And that's just the federal, this is just the federal government. So about 50 million in 2019 to 2020, 128 million in 2021, 2021. So anywhere between about, well, on average from what I'm seeing here, about 130 to 140 million dollars a year. Less last year for some reason, but a lot during the pandemic. It says here, during the fiscal year 2021 to 2022, the government of Canada spent a total of $140.76 million on advertising. That is propaganda. But that, compared to the kind of money that I just pointed out, our own government is being, washed out. The message is being washed out in many respects by all the foreign disinformation or propaganda money that's coming in from all these different players. And the ones mentioned, they're not the only ones. There are other countries engaging in this stuff too. Don't kid yourself. It's interesting. I think we've kind of run the course on this for tonight. I will get this stuff up on our website. You're getting the idea. But there is another thing that happened here. Let me see if I can find this information. I was on a freedom fighters Facebook page because I got access to an alternative account. And I went in and I was just scanning around, looking around, and this thing popped up. Took me to a Facebook page where this person had posted this weird-looking newspaper article. And I thought, what is that? And a very alarming headline. And so this is what was being shared. Top attorney testifies hospitals were incentivized to murder COVID patients. And I thought, well, that's quite a claim. Here it is here up on the screen. So this was being shared around on some freedom group pages. So they want to murder people in the hospitals. And I thought, that seems pretty extreme to me. I can't imagine that is a legitimate story. I bet you that's fake. And so what I did is I just took that and I just went and found the actual original source for the story, and it took me to this right here. And I had somebody call me today, a regular viewer, one of my favorite people out there, and we were talking about this stuff. She was quite concerned because she saw, a headline and a thumbnail for a video from a regular streamer that also kind of freedom-oriented, who she watches on a regular basis. And the headline was kind of clickbaity, very sensationalistic, and it had her pretty worried. But anyway, I said, don't worry about it too much. It's just, that's all it is. It's just clickbait to get people to watch the video. But this came up as well, and I said, this is actually, after finding it, looking at it, I realized that this is actually a fake website put up by a foreign government. And here it is. It appears to be that appears to be the case anyway. Definitely fake news. Slay news. And as I look at it, it's like it's either directly responsible for the distribution of fake news on behalf of a foreign government, or they're picking this stuff up and redistributing it. Either way, this story is fake. Just like a $3 bill. Top attorney testifies hospitals are incentivized to murder COVID patients. Like, do you believe that? I mean, I know we've got problems. I don't believe that. I don't think doctors were in there murdering people on purpose. Renowned American attorney Tom Renz has testified before the Ohio Senate with explosive allegations against the medical industry and federal government health officials. Who is Tom Renz? Let's find out. No, we don't want that one. He says a murder. Just got to make sure that I'm on the YouTube censors Ohio House hearing video for COVID-19 misinformation. Yeah. Opening testimony Wednesday in support of legislative effort to allow lawmakers to vote down public health orders went far enough off the rails for YouTube to remove footage of the speaker, Tom Renz. So there's some basis in truth to this story, but I don't know if the point is they're using this to ramp up fear. It's fear porn. Tom Renz, an attorney for Ohio Stands Up, filed a lawsuit in federal court in September seeking to overturn any and all health orders related to the COVID-19 pandemic. A federal judge last week deemed the arguments nearly incomprehensible and ordered Renz to show cause for why he shouldn't dismiss the suit for procedural errors. So, he is opposed to the, 35-minute testimony. So anyway, that site out there just taking what was said and focusing on bits and pieces of information and then exaggerating things to get people very, very scared. And I don't see anything in here at all about him saying that the doctors are being told to murder people. I mean, I know what he's saying, and I suppose he's dancing around the edges of that kind of language, but I'm not seeing that word in there. They're adding the word to take it over the top. I don't see anything in here where he actually says that. Now, I haven't seen the full video, but anyway, this particular site has all the hallmarks of foreign interference. I'm certain of that. So just an example of what's going on out there. I would take that with a grain of salt for sure. But that's the way they make it effective too. They take something that's truthful and then they wrap exaggeration, sensationalism, and even sometimes outright lies around it in order to get an emotional response from people and undermine trust in institutions, trust in government, and destabilize things. I've been seeing more and more of it, just making you aware. If you think that that's a reliable source for news, you probably have your head full of cobwebs. You need some help relearning how to identify what's real and what isn't. Okay, let's take a little break here. Also coming up later in the program, we have a new episode of Maverick Nights, part 2 of Two-Face. So don't go away. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Nights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Passwords. It looks like you're going to be able to share them if you have a business reason for doing it, any business reason at all. If you have a subscription to a newspaper or some other online service, it looks like you will be able to legally share your password to give pretty much an unlimited number of people access to it, as long as they're, I guess, within your business interests or whatever. So you can, any business interest, there's this new court ruling that has come down, and it's a huge concern for subscription-based media services that are online. This being reported by Blacklocks. Password sharing will be law in Canada by September 1st, it says here. So what does the Attorney General's successful ruling mean for people wanting to share passwords or firms that rely on passwords to protect content? Well, basically, there was this court case involving Parks Canada, which has a subscription, I guess, to Blacklocks Reporter, to their website. And it says that in this email that was sent out to Parks Canada employees, says it requires a subscription to access. We have subscribed, and you can find the login information below if you're looking to access at any time the site. And then they provide the username and password to all the employees, so they get one subscription and everybody gets to use it. anytime. So this ended up in a court battle, and Blacklock's lost. This will affect, could affect, will affect every newspaper, every media outlet. I mean, we give our stuff away for free here. We just rely on the donations from people who want to support us. But if it's subscription based, they just blew a big hole in the system, didn't they? Here's the Blacklock's website referring to this now. It'll be law September 1st. It says, Blacklock's shareholders issued the following statement. The Attorney General and a federal judge are enacting new rules allowing password sharing. This impacts all Internet users nationwide. It follows a federal court decision in Blacklock's Reporter versus Attorney General, case number 2024, FC 829. This is the law by September 1st, without an appeal. The ruling runs to 67 pages, but the key paragraph is number 136. What does it mean? Here are the answers. Can I share my passwords? Yes. So long as you can think up some legitimate business reason. You don't have to literally be in business. This is up to you. One legitimate business reason could be saving money on passwords. What type of password can I share? Any kind at all. The rule applies to any ordinary password, to websites, newspapers, video and music services, library databases, scientific or technical journals, peer-reviewed periodicals, you name it. What if terms and conditions say I can't share? It doesn't matter. The judge ruled Blacklock's terms were plainly visible and clearly prohibited password sharing without permission. Blacklock's even sent the password buyer 2 written notices with a number to call if they intended to share or distribute content. The judge dismissed it as irrelevant. How many times can I share my password? As often as you like. The Parks Canada manager in the case shared her password with every coworker who asked, at least 9 people. Could those 9 people share the password with 9 of their friends? Of course, Parks Canada at the time had 2,160 employees. Michael Geist, Canada Research Chair at the University of Ottawa, called the ruling a huge win for people who don't want to pay for content on the internet. There are enormous implications for libraries, he wrote. The University of Toronto Library serves 97,000 students. Under the new rule, password sharing mushrooms from 9 to 900 to 97,000 without payment or permission. Oh yeah, and it goes on here, and they're saying this will be catastrophic for media outlets that rely on subscriptions to survive. What will happen with that? What kind of ruling is that? And in order to fight that, Blacklock's is going to need deep pockets. It's going to take a lot of money over that one. That one kind of came out of left field today when I saw that. All about the money, baby. If you can save $2. Oh my. Okay, hang on a second here. I just accidentally closed off my note. Just want to bring this back up. Okay. So, did you guys see what the what Freeland said about doctors and the capital gains tax? She said, I'll tell you, and we're going to go to this exchange in the House of Commons today with Freeland and Polyev, but this is the dumbest thing. I've heard other people say this, and I agree. This is the dumbest thing I think I've heard in a long time. Freeland is saying that doctors, of course, they're going to end up paying more under this capital gains tax change, which was just passed yesterday in the House. And she's saying that provinces should use their portion of the tax windfall to give doctors a raise who have just been taxed more. So what she's saying is they're going to tax doctors more, tax people who make a capital gain more, so that they can then take the money and then give it back to the rich people. Only in this case, she's saying that doctors will end up getting a raise. It defies logic to me. I mean, so they're going to end up with more money, less money? I suppose it depends on how much the raise is, whether it offsets the amount of tax in addition that they're going to pay under the capital gains tax changes. But it's just, it is a crazy way of looking at things. The reason they do it is because if they tax more, they then get the money, and then they get to decide how the money is spent. Who gets the money? Well, you know who gets the money? The liberals' friends. Businesses, individuals, supporters, donors. If you're a liberal supporter, you line up at the trough, they're going to hand out the cash. Where's the cash come from? From the taxpayers. And whatever additional money they happen to print, which is just another form of taxation on the entire population. But what a crazy way to look at the world. What a crazy way to run the country. Take it with this hand, give it back with this hand, but they end up giving it to their friends. And so here she is in one breath saying that they're going to fight this election essentially using issues of class division, turning it into a class warfare struggle during the election. Well, we have to tax more because if we don't, we can't give away free birth control and women will get pregnant. We have to give free dental care. Well, that's why we need the extra money. We need this program. And if you don't support the capital gains tax, if you don't support the carbon tax, then you just don't have a heart. Well, it's going to be disruptive to the economy. It will act as a disincentive to investment. It distorts the market. As I said, with the capital gains tax like this, it's actually going to diminish the values of secondary properties like cottages, which a huge number of them are on the market right now because people are trying to dump them before the capital gains tax increases come into effect. And with I think it's going to be at 67%, almost 70% capital gains tax. So whatever you make over time, when you have an increase in value in your property, you end up being taxed on that amount. The thing is, too, you have to remember that even though it appears like as though your property is worth a lot more money, it's all relative. So if you bought it for $100,000 and then it doubles in value, it's now worth $200,000. So you've made a capital gain of $100,000, and then you pay 67 to 70% tax on your capital gain. But you have to remember that that's an inflated value. The value of money has actually been diminished because you have inflation. So you can't go out and replace that cottage gain for $100,000. Now to replace that cottage, it would cost you $200,000. So how much capital gain did you really make when adjusted for inflation? It depends on if you've had improvements, if the actual retail value or market value has increased beyond what the rate of inflation is. And when I say rate of inflation, it has to be specific, not just it has to be specific to that product. In this case, a cottage or a home. If you sell your home, and this doesn't apply to primary residences, this tax change, but nevertheless, it may seem like you're way ahead, right? If you sell your house for twice what you paid for it, but you still need a place to live. And so if you try to replace your house, you're going to have to pay a higher price to replace it. So did you really gain anything? No, it's all relative. Now, you may, over time, accumulate equity in the property. So you accumulate wealth over time. It's kind of like saving. And you may get appreciation in the value of it over time for a variety of other reasons. Your neighborhood might get more amenities. You might have a school built next to you. That might make it the neighborhood more attractive. And yeah, you may actually get a rise in overall value. And then later when you retire, maybe you downsize and you end up reaping the benefits of the capital gain, and then you can live off part of that for your retirement. People rely on their homes as retirement income quite often, or maybe even a secondary property like a cottage where they get the capital gain and then they use that money for a retirement fund. That's an investment. They put their money into that instead of, say, an RSP or like a retirement savings plan, etc. When the government goes after these kinds of people, they're going after the middle class, the upper middle class, and the rich, but a lot of the middle class who do the right things. They work hard, they save their money, they invest it, they take pride in ownership, and then over time, as they get older and get into their golden years, kind of like me, you want to reap the benefits of having done all the right things and being hardworking and responsible with your money over time. But what the government does in this case is they penalize people who do the right thing. They take it away. And that disincentivizes people from doing the right thing. When people see that kind of thing happening, they stop saving, they spend their money instead, they stop caring, and they will even leave the country. And we've seen record numbers of Canadians leaving the country for exactly these kinds of reasons. As I said, this will have a diminishing level of return, I think, for the government. They are not going to reap the windfall that they think they're going to in this case. They have gone too far. They've exceeded the optimum tax level with this plan. You're going to see, if Trudeau remains in power and this tax remains in place over time, within even a year, you'll see that they will not generate the tax revenue that they think they're going to. Because people will hide their money, remove their money. They're going to invest less. You'll get less productivity, less economic growth, because investment money will be sucked out of the system. And that means there's less capital out there for people to work with, for companies and individuals to do productive things with. Bad move, man. In the House of Commons today, this exchange happened between Pierre Poilievre and Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister, also Finance Minister. Let me bring it up here for you. This was the issue, front and center, not initially, but the economy in general, and then it drifts back into this whole issue of the tax rate. Huge issue heading into the election.
Just a quick reminder to honorable members not to acknowledge people, of course, that are visiting. We're happy they could come and visit us today, but the rules state that we're not supposed to acknowledge them. It happened on 3 different occasions during SO31s today, so I just want to remind honorable members of that. Oral questions, question orale, the honorable leader of the official opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Bloc voted in favor of another tax increase by the Liberals to take money from Quebecers and give it to the centralizing government of this Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister thanked them literally after the vote with a thumbs up. Is that the Liberal Bloc coalition? Less money for Quebec home builders, less money for Quebec entrepreneurs, less for doctors and entrepreneurs, and more for the federal Liberal colossal government. The Honorable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government understands the importance of fairness. We understand that a teacher should not pay higher taxes than a multimillionaire. We also understand that our decision will give $3 billion to the province of Quebec, additional money that the province can use to invest in healthcare. But the Conservatives don't like healthcare. They don't like investments by the government.
Leader of official opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this tax increase supported by the Bloc takes money away from doctors, forcing Quebec doctors to move elsewhere. The regions of Quebec will have fewer doctors during a cost of living crisis. The Bloc has voted to tax farmers more. The Bloc has voted for a tax on home builders. How is it that the Bloc and the Liberals want to tax Quebecers more to give more money to a big centralizing government in Ottawa? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers understand the importance of fairness. They understand that it is very important for a nurse to not pay higher taxes than the ultra-rich. They also understand that we need revenue to invest in healthcare, in daycares, and the province of Quebec needs that revenue as well. That is why the province has decided to do the same thing we are doing federally.
Bravo. Le chef de l'opposition.
9 years ago, the Prime Minister promised that taxing and spending more would make everything fair. Since then, Canada's had the worst growth in the G7, the worst in Canada's history since the Great Depression. Housing costs have doubled, rising faster than any other G7 country. So 76% of youth believe they'll never be able to afford a home. 1 in 10 people are at eating at food banks in Toronto, where there are 256 homeless encampments. Haven't the Liberals learned that taxing away doctors, taxing away home builders, taxing away the entrepreneurs who make paychecks is economic wackoness?
The Honourable
and there's that word again.
Mr. Speaker, we all certainly learned something yesterday. After 8 weeks of dithering and evasion, we learned which side the Conservatives are on. They had a chance to be very clear and say a teacher or a welder should not pay tax at a higher rate than a multimillionaire. But they just couldn't help themselves. At the end of the day, the Conservatives are always on the side of those at the very top and always against working people. That's what we saw yesterday.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the member mentions welders. Welders start businesses. Among the 300,000 small businesses that are targeted by this tax, according to the minister's own published documents. So those welders will pay a 66% tax on their investments, the same welders that build the homes that we're going to need.
Order. I'm having trouble hearing the question. I'm having trouble hearing the answer. So I'm going to ask honourable members to allow the questions and answers to happen. From the top, the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the member mentions welders. Welders incorporate. They start small businesses, welding businesses that build things, welding products that go into apartment complexes in which people live. So when the member taxes the small businesses that help us build the housing, she not only kills jobs for those welders, she actually kills housing when we are in a housing shortage. How could the minister possibly think it's a good idea to tax home building in a housing crisis and farmers in a food crisis?
I'm going to ask for the quiet in return. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, well, for one thing, the Conservative leader should get his facts straight. Of course, what we are talking about is a 2/3 inclusion rate, not a 2/3 tax rate. But he never bothers to actually get his numbers straight. What he also doesn't bother to do is to actually stand on the side of working people. He has been faking his support for workers, but yesterday workers learned where he really stands, and that is not with them.
That's right. That's for sure.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, taxing farmers during a food crisis, taxing home builders during a housing crisis, taxing away doctors during a healthcare crisis, and taxing small businesses during an economic growth crisis is economic vandalism.
That's
and
right.
Nothing less, Mr. Speaker. That is precisely why this minister has given us the worst growth in the G7, the worst growth for the next 40 years projected for the OECD, and 256 homeless encampments in her hometown. Isn't that the predictable result of her disastrous policy?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, do you know what the average income in Ottawa Carleton is? Because I do. It is $58,400. The average person in Ottawa Carleton could only dream of earning $250,000 in a given year. But the Conservative leader thinks his average constituent should pay tax on their hard-earned salary at a higher rate than someone who is earning more than $250,000 in capital gains alone. Whose side is he really on?
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. The Liberals want to tax the capital gains of the rich, but their simplistic definition of who the rich are catches Quebecers like small investors and individual entrepreneurs. The Bloc Québécois will propose amendments to correct this. For example, to offer homeowners who are not real estate speculators access to a higher one-time exemption rather than the annual exemption of $250,000. Will the government commit to working with us to avoid raising taxes on the assets of Quebecers who are not ultra-rich? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you for the question. Mr. Speaker, I would like to begin by thanking the Bloc for their vote yesterday for tax fairness. They understand, like Quebecers understand, the importance of solidarity, social solidarity, the importance of fairness. They understand that a teacher should not pay higher taxes than the ultra-rich. It's very unfortunate, but the Conservatives don't understand that. I'll wait for a little bit of silence. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. It's not complicated. Raising taxes on the ultra-rich? Yes. Raising taxes on the savings of the self-employed who have invested everything in triplex? No. These people have nothing to do with the real estate bubble. They have nothing to do with the difficulties of first-time buyers. Come on. Come on. Order, please. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The Honourable Member for La Prairie can start the question again. It's not complicated. Raising taxes on the ultra-rich? Yes. Raising taxes on the savings of a self-employed person with no retirement fund who has invested everything in triplex? No. These people have nothing to do with the real estate bubble. They have nothing to do with the difficulties of first-time buyers. So the Liberals have a choice before them. Work intelligently with us or hurt Quebecers who aren't ultra-rich to score political points against the Conservatives. Will they make the right choice? It's Wednesday. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker. Once again, thank you for the question. I want to highlight once again that we've made an important decision. The House has supported an important measure, a measure for fairness, a measure that will fund investments that are so important for Canada, important investments for Quebec. The province of Quebec will receive $3 billion thanks to this measure. I think healthcare $3 billion will really benefit. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, the housing crisis is everywhere. Seniors are sleeping in their cars. People aren't able to afford skyrocketing rents. A recent report tells us why. Affordable housing is disappearing at an alarming rate throughout the country. It's simple. There's little or none. The Liberals and the Conservatives have abandoned social and affordable housing. It wasn't profitable for their speculator friends, it seems, but people need a roof over their heads. What are those two old parties good for if they can't even guarantee a basic need, housing?
Just about
The
done
Honourable
with
Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for his question. I'd like to remind him that there's a measure in the most recent budget, and it was highlighted by different stakeholders. We've put $1.5 billion to take housing off the market, to ensure and reserve affordable housing off the market for people who need them. That's what we've done, and we'll work with all nonprofits, with municipalities, to increase the number of affordable and social housing units. Thank you.
Member for Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Tenants at Thorncliffe Park and across the country are rising up against corporate greed that is causing skyrocketing rents and resulting in evictions and rising homelessness. Renters cannot keep up with the costs of these unfair corporate practices, and the Liberals themselves are partners in making these rental units unaffordable. This is a violation of the human right to housing. Why is the Liberal government partnering in these exploitative practices and causing harm to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. President, I want to thank my colleague for her question, and I want to say to her and to all Canadians that are watching that this government was the first government that made historic investment in housing.
Okay, that's enough. Corporate greed, it's money printing, it's immigration, it's not just corporate greed. The government created the problem. The NDP is just throwing out a red herring there. It's the oldest trick in the book, too, you know. Blame it on the rich, eat the rich. Give me some economic policies that generate jobs and actual productivity and wealth. And stop worrying about the minimum wage. Let's start worrying about getting people the maximum wage. How about that? Maybe if we focused on creating good, high-paying jobs for people, started generating actual wealth and getting that injected into the economy, everybody would be a whole lot better off, don't you think? I don't like thinking about a minimum wage. I want a maximum wage.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
Okay, and I see in the chat over on Rumble, Christoph Dragon making reference to this guy here, Adil Cherkawi. Definitely a disruptor, Moroccan-born Canadian citizen. He was arrested by the Canadian government under a security certificate back in May of 2003. So he's known to authorities. And I know that Christoph Dragon is saying that this guy is involved in these pro-Palestinian demonstrations, particularly I think in the Montreal area. And indeed, I know he was out there. He did give a speech. The Premier of Quebec even, I zeroed in on it at one point, called for an investigation into it, but as it relates to the demonstrations, no charges have been laid against this person. And so I don't know what else to say about it at this point. He apparently in his speech said something to the effect of pray to God to take care of the Israelis. And the context for that, of course, would be in the minds of some people. And the interpretation would be because he's hostile in his tone and attitude and rhetoric toward Israel at this rally, that he means to eradicate them. But after police investigated, they said that it did not rise to the level where he should be charged with any kind of hate speech or a hate crime. But he's definitely on the radar. And the allegation in the chat tonight, I guess, is that he might be one of the key players in organizing the protest there. But I don't think we can say that here tonight without more evidence. So, that being said, I'm just looking here in the chat again. Okay. But back in April, I showed you guys sorry, my head's kind of been filled with something just in the last few seconds. Okay, back in April, I showed you this report called Disruptions on the Horizon, and it focuses on all the kinds of different disruptive things that are happening out there. Canadian government report. And I'll show you the report here just briefly again. I had it up. I think it's still here. It is. They see all kinds of disruptive activities out there. Disruptions on the horizon. Okay, so this is the report, and it just deals with concerns about the economy, how that can be disruptive, all kinds of conspiracy theories that are being distributed online, misinformation. We're getting to the point now where people can't tell what's real and what isn't. People being subjected to information that just kind of rolls out old cliches and tropes and fuels bigotry, hate, division, and it's all designed to destabilize through information warfare, including information and online posts generated with artificial intelligence and fake news sites. The disruption we're seeing even in our streets, and even with what I would say even attempts at color revolutions. Anyway, all that being said, now the media is picking up on this at this point, and tucked inside that report is a reference to concerns here in Canada about a possible U.S. civil war. And for whatever reason now, a couple of months later, because that was in April, now we're into the middle of June, and it's making headlines like this. Canada's big worry, a U.S. civil war. Of course, Justin Trudeau is off to the G7 summit. And there he is meeting with Joe Biden. And it's just talking about how Canada and the government here views the risk of a possible U.S. civil war as a very real possibility. And they're talking, of course, too, about the possible re-election of Donald Trump in there and how that might destabilize things. And I would add to that, I would argue that the re-election of Joe Biden might be even, probably would be even more destabilizing. in every respect. I don't know how much more destabilized things have to be when you have Russian submarines sailing off the coast of Florida, engaging in military drills, and you have U.S. and NORAD fighter jets in the air monitoring things. This is head-to-head disruption. Head-to-head disruption. So there's all that. Also, tonight, we have, kind of getting near the end, I've got something special lined up here for you in a moment. Have we covered off all of our main stories tonight? I think we kind of have. Oh, there was just one other thing that I just wanted to touch on. Last night, we talked about the pretendians, the Asmin, the selling of membership or citizenship in the Asmin nation. This, of course, being sold in many cases for an annual fee and then, or for an initial one-time fee and then a monthly maintenance fee. And you too can be an Indian for just a small fee paid to one of the Asmin nations that is out there online right now. And why is it the Asmin nation? Because the Asmin nation is made up of Métis, which is people of mixed blood, European and Indigenous. And the Canadian government has now recognized Métis as legitimate First Nation in some cases, but not so much people who claim to be Métis out in Eastern Canada. The point is, some of these organizations have been selling, clearly, fake status, fake Indian status to people for a fee. We got into that. Well, I said I would give you an example tonight, and here is one such example. In Kawartha Lakes, north of Toronto, we have seen, let me see if I can find this article that has, here it is right here. Okay, I'm just going to tuck that over there so I can refer to it again. So this is in The Guardian, and it's making reference to a First Nation community in Kawartha Lakes. It's called the Kawartha Lakes First Nation. It sits off a single-lane highway 100 miles northeast of Toronto. And how they're portraying this in this newspaper article in The Guardian is that it's essentially, it's about 20 people, and they're part of what's being described here as an extremist sovereign citizens group. And they are claiming to be a First Nations community. This is in dispute. The dispute is laid out in this newspaper article. This goes to the heart of what I was really talking about last night, not directly connected to the Asmin sales of citizenship through adoption into an Asmin community. But this is a separate group that is proclaiming to be a First Nations community, chiefed by William Denby. He's the self-proclaimed chief of the Kawartha group. Other First Nations communities in the area say that this is bogus. They've also run into opposition from the local town council there, the city council, who just question this land claim that the Kawartha Lakes group has initiated. The reason these people who are going after fake First Nation status is because it would afford them property rights, under any changes that might be made heading into the future, if there's a shift in sovereignty and land ownership from the federal government to First Nations as land is returned under UNDRIP. Bottom line is a lot of this stuff is fraudulent that is going on out there, and it's my understanding that there are some investigations now taking place by the authorities, and we'll see where all of this goes. This is just another example, another instance of some people, it looks like, might be trying to assert or to garner rights that maybe they're not rightfully entitled to, and maybe money as well. Also some indication that at least some groups who have created the like fictitious First Nations have already been able to access millions of dollars in government money. So these investigations are ongoing. All of this stuff still has to be dealt with in court. None of it at this point, as I understand it, has actually been proven one way or the other. So this is a dispute. It is laid out here clearly. And at the center of all this, First Nations, these ASMAN groups, which are online, and sovereign citizens groups, which are in many cases tied directly into freedom groups and common law groups. And it's a natural connection between the sovereign citizens and the common law groups because First Nations recognize, or their legal system is really based on forms of common law, natural law. And so it ties into what these groups have been advocating for and promoting. I think that we've seen a proliferation and expansion of interest and participation and membership in these sovereign citizens groups and common law groups because some people have seen this UNDRIP influence and integration coming down the highway straight for the Canadian and U.S. governments. So they knew this was coming. They've started to ramp up these groups with asserting rights based on common law, natural law, and to assert the sovereignty as a citizen through these pseudo-legal concepts that don't really apply in many cases to the people. The bottom line, again, they're selling fake Indian status. And some people are making a killing, making a profit off it. That's what appears to be going on. And other people are creating entire First Nations communities that are not really First Nations communities at all. And the government, in some cases, seems to even be duped by this. So this all has to be played out. And we've got the authorities, CSIS, the FBI, RCMP, other police agencies and investigations are ongoing. So stay tuned. We're going to hear more about this in the months and years ahead. What I've touched on last night is just the beginning, and I'm hoping to do more with this story in the months ahead. So I'm working on more to find out more about it, and I'll share it with you right here. Now, I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I have a new episode of Maverick Nights to share with you right here on the Maverick News Channel.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media,
but the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Okay, and here's our new episode of Maverick Nights, Part 2 of Two-Face.
The Maverick Knights, led by Sir Richard, were well aware of the threat posed by the notorious supervillain known as Two-Face. After successfully exposing her and forcing her into hiding, they knew it was only a matter of time before she resurfaced with a new plan to wreak havoc. As the Knights continued their vigilant watch over the city, they received a series of cryptic text messages from an unknown sender claiming to be Sir Richard's friend. However, they suspected that these messages were actually from Two-Face, attempting to deceive them and gain their trust. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Sir Richard gathered his team of skilled and dedicated knights to devise a plan to counter Two-Face's evil intentions. They knew that time was of the essence, as the threat of nuclear war loomed with the arrival of foreign enemy submarines off the coast of America. The Knights immediately activated their intelligence network, gathering information and analyzing every clue within the cryptic messages. They deciphered the hidden codes, unmasking Two-Face's true intentions. It became clear that she was collaborating with foreign governments to orchestrate a devastating attack on Sir Richard and the Maverick Knights. With the fate of the world hanging in the balance, Sir Richard and his team mobilized their resources. They coordinated with international intelligence agencies, sharing vital information and pooling their expertise to thwart Two-Face's sinister plan. The Knights engaged in covert operations, infiltrating enemy networks and gathering evidence to expose the collaboration between Two-Face and the foreign governments. Simultaneously, they worked tirelessly to neutralize the immediate threat of the nuclear submarines. Utilizing their advanced technology and strategic alliances, the Knights deployed their own forces to intercept and disable the enemy submarines before they could launch their devastating payload. As the tension escalated, the Knights faced numerous challenges and obstacles. Two-Face proved to be a formidable adversary, constantly staying one step ahead. However, the Knights' unwavering determination, combined with their exceptional skills and unwavering loyalty to justice, propelled them forward. Through their relentless efforts, the Maverick Knights managed to expose Two-Face's plot to the world, revealing the extent of his collaboration with foreign governments. This revelation sparked international outrage, leading to diplomatic pressure and sanctions against the involved nations. In the end, the Maverick Knights successfully thwarted Two-Face's evil plan, preventing nuclear war and saving the world from catastrophe. Their bravery, resourcefulness, and unwavering commitment to protecting humanity ensured that justice prevailed over darkness once again. The Maverick Knights, a group of elite warriors, had been tracking Two-Face, a notorious criminal mastermind, for months. Two-Face had managed to obtain access codes to several nuclear weapons, and his plan was to launch them simultaneously, plunging the world into chaos and destruction. With time running out, the Maverick Knights devised a plan to infiltrate Two-Face's secret lair. Led by their fearless leader, Captain Valor, they utilized their unique skills and abilities to overcome numerous obstacles. The team's expert hacker, Tech Wiz, managed to disable the security systems, allowing the Knights to move undetected through the facility. As they made their way deeper into Two-Face's lair, the Knights encountered his loyal henchmen, skilled in combat and armed to the teeth. However, the Knights' extensive training and teamwork prevailed, allowing them to neutralize the threats while minimizing casualties. Finally, the Maverick Knights reached the control room, where Two-Face was preparing to initiate the launch sequence. With seconds to spare, Captain Valor engaged in a fierce battle with Two-Face, showcasing his unmatched combat skills. Meanwhile, the rest of the team worked tirelessly to deactivate the nuclear weapons. Despite Two-Face's cunning and desperation, the Maverick Knights remained steadfast. Their unwavering commitment to protecting humanity fueled their determination to stop her. With a final blow, Captain Valor incapacitated Two-Face, ensuring he could no longer pose a threat. As the countdown reached its final moments, Tech Wiz successfully disabled the launch sequence, averting the impending disaster. The world breathed a collective sigh of relief as news spread of the Maverick Knights' triumph. Their bravery, resourcefulness, and unwavering commitment to justice had once again saved the world from catastrophe. The Maverick Knights became hailed as heroes, their names etched in history alongside other legendary defenders of humanity. But for the Knights, their mission was never truly complete. They remained vigilant, ready to face any future threats that may arise. The Maverick Knights stood as a symbol of hope, reminding the world that darkness could be overcome, and justice would always prevail.
Oops, hang on, we'll put the credits up. And there you have it. Maverick Knights, Two-Face versus Captain Valor. That's the first appearance of Captain Valor. So that makes that a collector's edition. Oh my. Somebody making reference to me minimizing collateral damage or something. Yeah. Okay. Also, just a note, I do see John in the chat there making reference to the 30th anniversary of the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, which resulted, of course, in the charges laid against O.J. Simpson in that case, and the big Bronco chase 30 years ago. Time flies. And then, of course, O.J. passing away just a short time ago at the age of 76. I don't really have a lot more to say about it, folks. I know that some other media have taken note of the anniversary today. To me, the O.J. tragedy was one of the pivotal moments in American history where it became a conspiracy theory that has run amok. Did he do it? Didn't he do it? Was he guilty? Was he not guilty? If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. I remember those words like it was yesterday. For me, it was. It was destructive for American society in so many ways. It still is today. This is something I've kind of had a revelation about of late. It's incidents like that that have torn away at the fabric of American society, Western society, because it has divided people. The O.J. Simpson case in particular was, you had a guy there who, for a time, I think, brought people together because he was able to bridge. He was a bridge between different cultures, different ethnicities. Became very famous, a celebrity, an actor, movie star, successful rental car commercial. He was palatable to people who otherwise might have been afraid of people from the black community. And he bridged that gap for a while. And then the killings. And America was torn apart at the seams. The nation divided. People polarized. Was he guilty? Wasn't he guilty? A nation already divided in history over, racial issues. That was a powder keg that blew up. And it has just, the nation's never fully healed from it, in my view. And it was also one of those cases that came right into people's living rooms at the time, into our homes. And it was disturbing. We all know what happened. And it is worth making note of it on an occasion like this, the 30th anniversary of the murders. But at the same time, I see the destructive power of just even talking about these things, because there are so many conspiratorial theories that swirl around these stories, whether it's the John F. Kennedy assassination, the RFK, Robert Kennedy Sr. assassination, the OJ trial. These are things that, people speculate on, they theorize on. And now we'll never know the truth because so much doubt, so many theories. Even if the truth comes out on any of this stuff, people wouldn't accept it because they would find a way to just discredit the truth. Even if all the documents on the John F. Kennedy assassination, if all the documents are released, people will still not believe it. Even if the real truth were to be presented. And in some cases, I think the truth is right in front of us. We just refuse to see it because we prefer to believe the conspiracies. Well, not the conspiracies so much, but the theories. People don't want the truth because I think sometimes people can't handle the truth. So is it even productive to start going down the OJ road again? I would say no. I'd say give it its due. But even me sitting here talking about this right now, I'm not sure that it's helpful. I don't think it's good for the country to keep rehashing these things. It's like picking at a scab that can never heal. And I think sometimes people like that. Some people exploit it for gain, monetary gain, maybe to build a YouTube channel for different reasons. I just didn't even really want to get into the OJ stuff tonight because of that exact reason. It's just one of those stories that, yeah, we've done it, we've covered it, we've given you all the information we have on it to rehash it again and go over it and over it and over it and over it again and again and again and rehash all the theories. What does it help? It doesn't help anything because it does not get us any closer to the truth anymore. In fact, I think it drives us away from it in many respects. When we talk about foreign interference, I'm at the point now where I think that with some of these stories, foreign actors acting with malicious intent actually fuel the confusion. They inject their own little nuggets of information and their disinformation theories to make those things catch fire because they know that it divides the country and destabilizes things even more. The OJ case, exactly one of those, because it divides people along racial lines largely, and even political lines too. It was highly political at the time. That's as much as I really need to say about it tonight. That's all I really want to say about it. And all of this stuff, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it all. You're never going to unify the country. You're never going to find stability by continuing to pick at those scabs that can never fully heal. Leave them alone. Let them heal up a little bit more. Focus on more positive things. Things that we can deal with that are grounded in reality. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Tragic story. Enough said. Hopefully I'll be back tomorrow night. I need to start focusing on a little bit of other work. I got to pay some bills around here. So I need to do some things to do that. So I'll try to be here tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if I can work through that other stuff. and get back here. If you want to support the channel, you can do that by donating at maverickdonations.com. That's the Give, Send, Go. You can also support us at freedomreporters.com. That's the one most commonly used. If you send $30 or more, I would be happy to send you a Maverick News t-shirt as a token of my appreciation for supporting the work that we do here. Please like, share, subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell on YouTube if you do subscribe on YouTube. And yeah, take a look over at Rumble. We got to grow over there. And Brendan is going to come back later this week. He's going to join us on Friday. Not tomorrow, but on Friday. So the return of Brendan is upon us. And he also sent me some information about getting verified on Rumble. I guess I haven't taken things to haven't gone through that step yet properly. So hopefully by Friday we'll have our Rumble channel properly verified, and that might make it even easier to find and maybe help generate more interest in the channel and get us some more subscribers over there. Rumble, 2 channels we have operating over there. Please consider subscribing over there as well. And the rebroads over on Wimkin and Cloud Hub, and we're running on Instagram tonight as well. So we're kind of all over the place. Just still not on Facebook because we're just too darn honest, I guess. And Facebook decided they had to ban us. We're wearing it like a badge of honor, which I will continue to wear tomorrow night. Hopefully, when I return here at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will catch all of you then on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.